We're asking about resilience. This is because of new guidance for schools saying children need to be taught to toughen up. So I'd love your thoughts on this one. 0207 862 2222. That's the number. Do give me a call. Children will be taught that worrying and feeling down are just normal feelings. They're not mental health conditions. It's all part of a wider bid to tackle the number of young people being signed off sick from work. The Education Secretary's told the Telegraph newspaper that the new curriculum will help children develop grit and resilience and help them understand that feeling anxious can be part of normal life. Do you think this is a good idea? Or does it undermine all the work that's gone into raising awareness of mental health conditions? So Katy's children are 15 and 19. Let's start with you.
Yeah.
Do you think that you have taught them resilience? Have they learned that at school? Or do you think there's a tendency now to diagnose everybody with some kind of condition?
They are resilient. They are resilient kids. And I think that's the word, though, is resilient. I can't bear the phrase toughen up. I think that just sounds like what we all grew up with, and I think it's toxic. I think the generation now are growing up in such a different world than we did, with such enormous pressures. So, yes, we need to be so mindful of supporting their mental health and making them aware. And but equally, they need to be building resilience so that they have the toolkit to cope with whatever life is going to throw at them. And I think it's both things, but you know, for them to know that we all have mental health, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not good, and we all go through ups and downs, and getting the support that they need. I love that mental health is so widely talked about in a way it never was.
But this is almost the opposite. This is almost the opposite. This isn't what you've just said. This is really not that. This is saying, look, life's tough. You're going to feel down. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel sad. You're going to feel worried. You're going to feel anxious. But that is not a mental health condition. That is life. Now, is that helpful or is that unhelpful when we're only just beginning to see, you know, the prevalence of anxiety, children who really are going through really serious issues? Is this taking us back to, you know, the old days where we kind of rode roughshod over those sorts of emotions?
I think it's really important that we recognise how different their world is. We didn't have social media. They're growing up under such incredible scrutiny from such a young age. And I think for them to feel supported in all ways and know that we are there. Obviously, as parents, our job is to send them out into the world as incredible, resilient, independent individuals. And so it's about helping them to build resilience whilst also making them aware and equipping them to cope with moments when mental health maybe isn't what it should be.
Darryl, is this guidance going in the right direction or is it skewing in the wrong direction too soon?
I think there's a real risk attached to it, isn't there? I agree with Katy in the term toughen up for me feels really jarring. And I think there's a difference between telling somebody that what they are feeling is normal and there's sort of, you know, you do, of course you want to teach children resilience. You want to teach them that the world is going to throw them things that are tough and that they are going to feel all of those things. I think that that can very quickly stray into, well, you should just get over it, or pull yourself together, or pull your socks up. And we have so successfully in the last decade or two moved beyond that. We've busted so many of those stigmas, and you know we talk a lot about people. You know, there's a huge prevalence of mental health, and we're sort of over-diagnosing things. The reality is these things have always existed. We're just talking about them more. We're more aware of them now, and we're dealing with them, and we're creating a climate in which they are normal to feel those things.
And your Molly is now how old?
Well, she's 9 months, and to be honest with you, I was thinking about what you were saying there about the different world that the sort of. I mean, I grew up probably in a different world to the generation before. The generation in between me and Molly have got another world to deal with. I was just thinking then how terrified I am of how am I going to guide my 9-month-old daughter through the world that she will inherit? What is that even going to look like? What are the pressures going to be? The social pressures and you know and all the anxieties attached with that. I mean, I'm trying not to think about it really. It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it?
One of the ways might be to behave like a parent rather than a chum and protect her and preserve her from as much of it as you possibly can by keeping her away from smartphones and internets until she's at least 25, which I think is the best possible gift you could possibly give to her.
I think that's true,
you know, and really step up to it and say, look, everyone else is on it. I don't care. As my father used to say, what the Goldbergs are doing is not my concern. If you want to live with them, go and live with them. I'll make you sandwiches. But while you're under my roof, young lady, you'll do as I do and abide by my rules. That is what he really did say. And he wasn't wrong, I think, in many ways. At the time, I hated it, obviously. But now, I think at least he was protecting me from the things he thought I needed to be protected from. I mean, Virginia, this idea that, you know, life is tough. We're not always happy. That things are very difficult sometimes.
I have to say, this was thrown into focus for me. My husband and I have just done a cruise around the northern islands of Scotland, and we managed to get on to St Kilda, which was completely evacuated in 1930 at the request of the islanders because life was so grim for them. It was poverty of a kind I don't think I knew existed in, well, not mainland Britain, but in Britain. The men didn't have shoes, and the following is true. They grew prehensile toes because they had to sort of cling on to the rocks. That is suffering, you know, not someone saying, oh, well, you know, my mental health's bad because I'm feeling a bit sad today. You know, I think those islanders had to cope with conditions that we didn't know about. And Katy, I mean, I agree with you that, you know, obviously life is very different for us, but in many ways it's an awful lot better. You know, we all get up in the morning and I mean, and also I thank the good Lord I did not have to go to school in an age of social media. I mean, that must be really difficult.
Well, it means you can never escape it 24 hours a day. If anyone's bullying you, you carry on being bullied. It's not like it used to be, where once you got home, you had the sanctity of home. That's why everybody was so absolutely blown away by adolescence. The drama, because this little boy wasn't free of anything in his own bedroom. His parents thought that when he was between their walls, he was fine. He wasn't fine at all because he was a constant target. And that was a shock to lots of people.
When you get home, it amplifies because they can hide behind their keyboard. I think it's so much that they have to carry these days, and I do think their mental health is at risk in a way that ours never was. My childhood was idyllic compared to children today. I think they have so much that they have to carry.
Let me take a call because Amanda's on the line in Buckinghamshire. I'd love to know what she wants to say about this. Amanda, thanks for ringing. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think I understand there's mental health problems, but I think today a lot of times it's a get out. And I remember at an age where when my children were growing up, if they were bullied, I would stand by them 100%. And I think that's another thing. You know, I see people walking along the road with a child and they're on the phone. They're not talking to their children and things like that. I think it's very important, as you say, to be a proper parent. You're not their friend. You're a parent. They live by your rules, and that's how it's always been. And as the lady before said, people years ago were extremely poor. We have no idea how poor people were in my grandmother's time. But I think it's very important to support your children, but it's also important for them to learn that they have to stand on their own 2 feet at some stage, because when you go out into the world, that's how it works.
But Amanda, is it also important to establish, you know, some children will sail through life. They're just those children, you know, they rise to the top of everything. They've got, you know, they're cheerful, they're broad-shouldered, you know, they somehow get through. Others will flounder when things are very rough, but they'll somehow come through it. And others
That's why
won't.
it's important.
You know, other children will be falling by the wayside. And, you know, the sorts of things that won't derail one child really will derail another. And I just would be worried about the whole class being swept up in this, it's only life, you know, life is tough, but some children will sink rather than swim, and those are the ones with the mental health issues. And it can't be denied that there are some like that, right, Amanda? Not all of them are the same.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've had problems with my granddaughter. I totally agree with you, but they've got to be able to cope with people, because people are cruel. When, children are cruel. When my granddaughter comes home, so-and-so said so-and-so, or so-and-so, so-and-so, I say they only say it because they're jealous of you.
Yeah, and it's true.
So you've got to be there to listen.
Yeah, also true. Very, very true. Of course, we all congratulate ourselves that we gave our children our full attention. But, of course, we didn't have the phone constantly distracting us. We had nothing to distract us except Crown Court, which was an absolutely deadly programme on daytime television. It's the only programme you could watch, so you might as well talk to your child. There was nothing else to do. God knows, Amanda, if we'd had the phones, would we have even noticed we had any children? We'd probably been scrolling and scrolling, just like everyone is today. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you. Let's hear from Maria in Portsmouth. What do you think, Maria, about this?
No, it's not the teacher's job to be doing that to the children. It's the parents' job.
Right.
And if the children are struggling, they should be easily able to sit down with the parents, and the parents should be asking the kids, how was your day at school? What happened today? And things like that. Why aren't we doing that with our children?
I think partly because we're in a most terrific rush, partly because we've got yet another financial crisis and people are just trying to work and work and work, and partly because, as you say,
Vanessa.
the phones and the
No,
keyboards and all the
no.
things that come between us and conversation. Don't you think that's what it is?
Vanessa, you have children. It is your responsibility to talk to them and make sure they're okay.
Agreed.
But what if
That's
people
it.
don't?
It's as simple as that.
You're absolutely right, but I still think that teachers need to be on the lookout for the ones who are
Well, think how
falling
much
through.
time a kid is in school compared to at home. I remember my daughter wanted these really expensive school shoes back in the day, and in the end I bought them for her because I thought she wears those 5 days a week. She can have cheap shoes at the weekend. Makes much more sense. Like, think how long they're in school. It's so imperative that teachers are across things as well. They actually see our
Right.
kids more than
Now,
we do.
talking of school, how much time children spend there and teachers being across things, I really had to mention one story that is in today's papers. Now, this is the story, I hope you've seen this, of a father who got a good telling off from the school for dressing up in fancy dress to collect his daughter on the last day of term. He's a farmer. He's called Chris Naftheen, and he dressed up as a gorilla to meet his 7-year-old daughter because he wanted to embarrass her in front of her friends. There he is, you can see a picture of it. But the school messaged him to say that it was a safeguarding issue and that it had caused concern among the adults. And I wonder whether it's the adults who need to toughen up a bit there. What do you think about this
I think
one?
that's horrifying.
Yes,
I'd be
what do you
running
think?
for the hills.
Yeah, I can sort of understand the principle of if you turn up and I mean that could in theory be anybody, couldn't it? In that suit. So I can understand the school thinking, who are we handing this child over to in this suit? If he took his head off,
Yes, he did.
No, but eventually, when his daughter came out, he took it off. But when he walked into the playground, he looked like that, and I would be running. I mean, if you want to bring the summer holiday fun, there is not a more fun day of the year, right, than break-up day for the summer.
Yeah.
Come dressed as something fun for a start. And number two, the thing that concerned me was he said he wanted to embarrass his daughter. Why are we embarrassing, evidently, about a 6-year-old child? Like, this is her fun. I mean, I think as well, parents and teachers, we're all heightened at this time of year. We've had WhatsApp groups going off. We've got teachers' presents. We've got sports days. Everything is packed into that last week. Everything is heightened. You cannot walk in a gorilla costume and expect it to go well.
Do we know how the children actually reacted to
We
this?
don't know, but I bet a few of them screamed and got the absolute fright of their lives. You wouldn't expect a great big giant gorilla to go walking in.
I would have thought they might have found it quite funny, actually, once they realised what was
Once they
going on.
realised, but it's the bit where they didn't realise. I bet the teachers would have got
I
a right
remember being
fright as well.
a party when I was about 6 and the dad came down the stairs dressed as a gorilla with no warning. I don't think I've ever to this day been so scared.
I remember opening the door on Halloween to some I thought they were very sweet little ghosties. You know, they were little and they were just draped in sheets and I thought they looked absolutely adorable. So I ushered them in to the living room where I think 3-year-old was sitting, and she got the fright of her life. She went completely pale, screamed the place down, and I never would have done it if I thought she'd be frightened, but she was frightened. Nobody told her they were just little children under a sheet.
Actually-
So, if you don't know, you don't know, right?